Hey, Shalom, Akim, Shalom, Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the others great millstone of teaching us his truth, and salutations to the sincere Akim and Aquath that may listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Requai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will and edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, it's going to be a little bit more of a a light exhortation. But I just thought it would be very interesting to go into this. And um, my discussion for today is just going to be discussing honoring authority and the manner of kings, right? So something I was meditating on as well. You know, you can also apply this, especially like in your walk, because something I would observe, with our people when it comes to like authority, they don't. I'm kind of more speaking a little bit more when it comes to like I guess younger Jakes and sometimes like that, when they're dealing with authority, they don't have a very good and respectable um they don't essentially tend to respect authority very well, and it gets them into trouble, right? Kind of speaking more about like younger Jakes, like in their teenagers, or they could be like mid 20s, early 20s, and they might get into a scuffle with people at work or whatever. And I was just reflecting on a couple things, and before I ramble on too much, I sincerely pray and hope that this lesson is edifying, right? So what I want to do, um I'm just going to read a little bit of this chapter here. So this is First Samuel chapter 26. I'll start at verse 1, and I'll kind of interject here and there. But I want to start at the top. So it says, this is First Samuel 26 verse 1. And the Ziphites came to Saul to Gibeah, saying, doth not David hide himself in the hill of Hakilah, which is before Jeshimon? Then Saul arose and went down into the wilderness of Ziph, having 3,000 men of Israel with him, to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul pitched in the hill of Hakilah, which is before Jeshimon, by the way. But David abode in the wilderness, and he saw that Saul came after him in the wilderness. Right now, this is a tense situation, because King Saul is kind of like tripping, and essentially he's trying to what's the word I'm looking for? He's trying to kind of inflict harm upon David. He starts to become very, very carnal, right? So this is verse 4, and it says, and David therefore sent out spies, and understood that Saul was come in very deed. And David arose and came to the place where Saul had pitched. And David beheld the place where Saul lay, and Abner the son of Ner, the captain of his host. And Saul lay in the trench, and the people pitched around about him. Then answered David, and said to Ahimelech the Hittite, and Abishai the son of Zeruiah, the brother of Joab, saying, who will go down with me to Saul to the camp, And Abishai said, I will go down with thee. David and Abishai came to the people at night, and behold, Saul lay sleeping within the trench, with his spear stuck in the ground at his bolster. But Abner and the people lay round about him. Right? So he was kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? He kind of let his guard down. He just he wasn't like alert or anything like that, right? Verse 8, and it says, then Abishai to David, the Most High Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai hath delivered thine enemy into thine hand this day. Now therefore let me smite him, I pray thee, with the spear, even to the earth at once. I will not smite him the second time. And David said to Abishai, destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? Right? So, there's a interesting dialogue here between David and Abishai, right? Because essentially what's going on now, David's in a situation where he has the opportunity to, I guess you can say, like, okay, he has the opportunity to enact, kind of get his lick back, get his own revenge, yeah, yo, man, you've been tripping on me for a long time, I want to take you out, but that's not David's mindset, like, you know what I'm saying? So let me just read verse 10, and it says, David said, furthermore, as the Lord Yahweh liveth, the Lord shall smite him, and to his day shall come to die, and he shall descend into battle and perish. For the Lord Yahweh forbid I should stretch forth mine hand against the Lord's anointed. But I pray thee, take thou the spear that is at his bolster, and the cruse of water, and let us go. Right? So essentially, David had the opportunity to essentially enact his own revenge upon him, but it doesn't seem right. He's looking at the situation very, very spiritually, because like he was saying, Saul is the Lord's anointed, right? The Lord had put him there, right? So for him, it's like, yo, I'm not gonna essentially enact vengeance upon you, because he understands that King Saul is, one, he's the Lord's anointed, and two, he's the one that is in authority at the moment, right? So it doesn't look right, essentially trying to what's the word I'm looking for? I guess you can say usurp authority, or even trying to get your vengeance upon who the Lord has essentially set up. And why am I reading this? Why would you think, require, what is this, what does this pertain? Does this pertain to me? If you can take this situation, and you can even apply it, to essentially your own walk, you can apply it essentially to your own workplace also. You can apply it, like, say for example, you live with parents or family who are essentially, like, I guess, well, older than you in the flesh, right? You can apply it to that situation also, because there are people that you might be in a particular situation, whether it's in your home life or dealing with people at the workplace. The Lord has set those people up in those particular positions, so it doesn't look right, if you're essentially being you're trying to usurp their authority, or you're trying to become vengeful or anything like that. That doesn't look right. Like, the Lord set these people up in these particular positions for a reason, right? So the best thing to do, going back to the title of this lesson, is to you honor their authority. You're not challenging their authority, because sometimes when you think about, like, for example, our people, I'm kind of more specifically, when it comes to, like, a lot of our, like, young people that are very, very I hate to say, basically they're ungodly, right? When you think a lot about, a lot of our people, especially here in Babylon, because they're so uncultured, they don't know all the time how to deal with, authority, especially authority of their own kin, right? They can be very rude, rash, disrespectful, Like for example, like they don't know how to essentially honor those people who are in that particular position, right? And those people could be still of their own kin, right? Maybe dealing with Esau, they might be a little bit more friendly, but Jake has become a very they've become very unpleasant. I'm just recalling some of my situations from like dealing with Jake in the world sometimes. And Jake can be very rude and impolite. They make things harder for themselves. They're very emotional. So that's why I'm kind of reading this situation, because going back to the to hit the nail on the head, basically, the Lord set these people up, right? So you don't essentially try to usurp their authority. You remain some type of cordial, what's the cordial, essentially having manners towards them. Hold on, let me get the word cordial. Just bear with me on this. Okay. Okay, cordial isn't the word. One second. Okay. Let's see. Amiable. Okay. Okay, maybe the word okay, so the word amiable would probably be a best more fit, like pleasant. Like you remain in very pleasant relations with that particular person, right? I'm not saying you have to, share them your whole life and, your whole childhood memories and all that, but, you have a very peaceable, that's probably the best word, a very peaceable relations, with those people, because those people are in that position for a reason, right? And they have the authority to essentially, you know, whether it's like if like if you're at your job, they have the authority to come down hard on you, or they might start tripping, right? Like the scriptures say that he that pleaseth the Lord, he maketh his enemies to be at peace with him, right? As a matter of fact, I didn't write that down, but let me get that. Just bear with me on this. I think that's Proverbs. Is that 16? Okay, this is Proverbs 16, verse 7, and it says, when a man's way pleased the Lord Yahweh, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. Right, so it just shows and then has a certain level of conduct that David is keeping in mind as he's going through this particular situation, right? This is not to justify Saul's behavior, right? But these things were set up so we can take and apply these different things, right, even into our lives, so to speak, right? Okay, let me go back to First Samuel. Okay, let me just read down, and it says, this is verse 12, 1 Samuel 26, and it says, so David took the spear and the cruse of water from Saul's bolster, and they gat him away, and no man saw it or knew it, neither awaked, for they were all asleep, because the deep sleep from the Lord was fallen upon them. Right. So essentially, David has his chance to essentially take vengeance into his own hands, but it wouldn't look right, for him to enact his own vengeance. Like he was, essentially waiting upon the Lord to exact vengeance on his behalf, right? Rather than trying to get his lick back, so to speak, right? So, this is verse 13, and it says, Then David went over to the other side and stood at the top of the hill afar off, and a great space was between them. And David cried to the people, and Abner, the son of Ner, saying, Answerest thou not, Abner? Then Abner answered and said, Who art thou that criest to the king? And David said to Abner, Art thou a valiant man who is like to thee in Israel? Wherefore then thou hast not kept thy lord the king? For there came one of the people in to destroy the king thy lord. And this thing is not good that thou hast done. As the Lord Yahweh liveth, ye are worthy to die, because ye have kept not your master, the Lord's anointed. And now where your king's spear is in the cruse of water, there that was at his bolster, right? So, David essentially, kind of disarmed him, so to speak. He didn't take upon his own, he didn't take the spear to try and get his own vengeance. But that's pretty much, the point. So let me go to Romans. Because just to reinforce a point I was just making earlier, because the Lord set these people up, and that included at the time King Saul at the time, right? So this is Romans 13. I'll start at verse 1, and it says, Let every soul be subject to the higher powers, for there is no power but of the Most High, and the powers that to be are ordained from the Most High, right? So the Lord, that's the point I wanted to get home, because the Lord put these people in these particular positions of power, right? And so really the point also from this lesson you can take away is maintaining a certain level of etiquette too, especially like another thing too that Jake has a huge problem with, I've noticed, is even dealing with police officers, right? Dealing with these different officers, they're very tense, and then Jake is a very it can be very, very emotional, and because they're so emotional, and a lot of us were just raised by our mothers, right? And we don't have proper emotional content, like Bruce Lee would say, because they don't have and possess these particular skills, and actually in order to properly conduct themselves, they start tripping, they start losing their marbles, like King Saul basically, right? They just start getting very carnal. They start mouthing off a lot of things that they shouldn't, and then eventually sometimes they incriminate themselves, right? I'm not saying that is on every situation, but a lot of situations can be avoided if Jake actually had prioritized the importance of wisdom. Like the scriptures say that wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, right? So because Jake doesn't prioritize a lot of these things, like these very, I hate to say the word simple, they're not really simple, to be honest with you, right? Jake doesn't prioritize these things, and they get into a lot of situations that it causes them to they're digging their own grave. That's the point I'm really trying to hit, right? So okay, Romans 13 verse 2, and it says, Whosoever therefore resisteth power resisteth the ordinance of the Most High, and they that resist shall receive themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then be afraid of the power to do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same? For he is the minister of the Most High to thee for good. If thou do that which is evil, which Jake normally does, so they get into these situations, and it causes damnation on themselves, right? So it says, Be afraid, for he beareth the sword not in vain, for he is the minister of the Most High, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Right. So we live, a very, plain, simple, what's it called, minimalist life, like the Apostle Kabar likes to say, right? But you have a lot of our people out here. They go essentially out of their way looking for trouble, right? And then they're surprised and shocked when trouble actually comes knocking at their doorstep, right? So let me I think there was one more I had. I think it was First Peter 2. Okay, First Peter chapter 2, verse 13, and it says, "Submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether it be to the king as supreme, or to governors, or to them that are sent by him for the punishment of for evildoers, for the praise of them to do well. For so is the will of the Most High Yahweh, that will well doing ye may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men." Right. So it's really just about maintaining a certain level of conduct when dealing with these people in higher powers, right? And this is not strictly just I'm referring this to, like, okay, police officers, yes, of course, but at the same time, being peaceable with all men, like Paul says as well. And then even that can be people of your own household also, right? It's not like if they're asking you, for example, like, your folks are asking you, I want you to, buy some pork or something like that, then no, obviously. But that's that's not the point I'm trying to make here, right? There's a certain level of reason and conduct. Is just maintaining, when you're coming into contact with people of who have authority to essentially arrest, or even dealing with parents, even dealing with for example, security, judges, like those types of people I'm mostly referring to in these particular situations, right? Just maintaining a certain level of conduct, right? So anyways, I guess I'll leave it there, but hopefully this video was edifying. I just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bashim Habashai, Bashim Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, teaching us his truth. So, and till next time, I say Shalom.